sense that governing is already underway, that you already know that this president has started some things that he intends to finish in his second term. There's sort of a sense of continuity, a pretty well-informed expectation about what kind of president this is going to be and where he is likely to go. When President Obama was inaugurated the first time, there was none of that certainty and expectation, right? I mean, the country and all of us were caught up in the historical enormity of the fact that the United States of America was about to swear in our first African-American president, and that 8 years of Republican administration under Bush and Cheney was coming to an end. That inauguration in 2009 was such a dramatic break from the past toward a whole new future that I don't think anybody expects that we will have an inauguration quite as consequential as the last one, maybe ever again. But we now know, as part of the historical record, that while the whole country was marveling at the enormity of the transition we were making on Inauguration Night in 2009, something else was going on that night in Washington, and it had a very different vibe. It was first reported in Robert Draper's book, Do Not Ask What Good We Do, inside the U.S. House of Representatives. It came out this past April. In the Frontline documentary about President Obama's first term that aired this week on PBS, they got everybody to go on record about this. Now, lest you thought this was an apocryphal thing, it turns out this really did happen on Inauguration Night 4 years ago, the very first night that President Obama was President Obama. Watch.
On the very night Barack Obama was inaugurated, a group of Republicans quietly gathered to develop plans for taking on the new president.
A meeting and dinner took place in the famous steakhouse in downtown Washington, with Newt Gingrich as sort of the MC, as it were.
The thing I found disturbing this week was the
At the gathering of GOP luminaries, top conservative Congressman Eric Cantor, Kevin McCarthy, Paul Ryan, Senate power brokers Jim DeMint, John Kyle, Tom Coburn, and event organizer Frank Luntz.
So they decided that they needed to begin to fight Obama on everything. This meant unyielding opposition to every one of the Obama administration's legislative initiatives. They all talked about this, and they began to get more and more optimistic, and they left feeling practically exuberant.
Inauguration day full of events. 10 official events.
Across Washington that evening,
Stunning crowd of people visited.
the new president had no idea what the Republicans were planning.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States and First Lady Michelle Obama.
Surrounded by supporters at the inaugural balls, the mood was hopeful.
President Obama did not have a full sense of what Washington was going to be like for him. He had not been in the middle of these kind of down and dirty fights. The ugly reality of governing in Washington today.
That really did end up being a hallmark of President Obama's first term in office, right? What happened that first night. That first night of his inauguration, what the Republicans were meeting about in Washington that night, became the story of a large part of his first term. Trying to negotiate, trying to bargain, trying to come to middle ground with Republicans, and the Republicans saying no, 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 never, no, no, no matter what he offered. That is why we had a first term in which this president kept offering the Republicans that he would go along with their Republican ideas, and mysteriously, they would even say no to their own ideas.
This law failed by 7 votes. When 7 Republicans who had co-sponsored the bill, had co-sponsored the idea, suddenly walked away from their own proposal after I endorsed it. So they make a proposal, they sign on to the bill, I say, great, good idea. I turn around, they're gone. What happened?
This was a hallmark of President Obama's first term. The Republicans were going to say no, 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 no matter what he offered, even if what he offered was their own idea in the first place. That is how it went for months, and then that is how it went for years. And now, what's new? He is not doing that anymore.
I put forward a very clear principle. I will not negotiate around the debt ceiling. We're not going to play the same game that we saw happen in 2011. So we're not going to do that. But I will not negotiate around the debt ceiling. We're not going to do that again.
As I said earlier this week, one thing I will not compromise over is whether or not Congress should pay the tab for a bill they've already racked up.
What I will not do is to have that negotiation